by investing in the people, investing in the growth, investing in the marketing to try and grow that business, because that's how they make money.
7 out of the top 10 roofing companies in America are now backed by private equity.
Each roof gets replaced every 20 years, but on millions of roofs, it turns into a pretty steady demand year over year.
And if you think this won't affect you, think again.
What they're really relying on is this brand is a lead generation machine.
He's closed dozens of deals, and now he's pulling back the curtain so contractors like you can understand how the game is really played.
There were times we were trying to buy a business and their advisor was like actively making it harder for us.
This is AI and Marketing for Home Service Pros, the show for contractors who want to grow without wasting time or money. If you're in roofing, HVAC, plumbing, or any home service business, we break down how AI and modern marketing can help you book more jobs, close more leads, and build a business that runs without babysitting every task.
Private equity is changing roofing and home services faster than most contractors realize. 7 out of the top 10 roofing companies in America are now backed by private equity. And if you think this won't affect you, think again. My guest today is William Pauly, founder of Marcon Advisors. William has spent over 15 years in private equity and M&A, helping contractors navigate what can be the biggest financial decision of their lives, selling their business. He's been inside billion-dollar roll-ups, he's closed dozens of deals, and now he's pulling back the curtain so contractors like you can understand how the game is really played. In this conversation, we break down what makes a contracting business attractive to buyers, the biggest mistakes owners make when it comes to data and brand, and how to prepare whether you plan to sell soon or not at all. If you ever wondered how private equity sees your business or how to make sure you don't leave millions on the table, this episode is for you. All right, William, thank you for joining the show. I originally saw you, really connected about a year ago. I saw all the posts you've been posting on Facebook. A lot of great information about M&A, right? Private equity. And I thought it was really valuable information, especially with how things are changing today, right? One of the biggest things that I've seen, right? Roofing Contractor magazine came out with their top 100 roofing contractor of the country, right? The 7 out of the top 10 roofing companies in the country, right, are backed by private equity, right? 20 out of the top 100 are involved in private equity. Right. And the 3 main levers that the article quotes about their growth was, first is mergers and acquisition. Second was strategic marketing. And third was technology. Right. So it's very important to have this conversation, right? Especially with all the changes that's happening today. Right. So what are the most common things that contractors get wrong about private equity?
I don't know if they get necessarily things wrong, but I think they don't understand. They may not be fully up to speed on and understand it. I guess there are 2 things. One is understanding what private equity is, how they're incented, how they get compensated, what they're really trying to do. That is one component. The other component, I think, is understanding their strategy and what they're trying to do in the roofing industry for contractors. I mean, right now they're in the roofing space and it's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. But I think if you take a step back and realize this is one of a dozen, 20, 30, a number of industries where a similar playbook has been utilized, you can learn a lot. So I think it's just happening faster now. A lot of these moves when they come to industries and this disruption around the merging companies, consolidating them, building a scaled player is happening faster. And, by the time it makes it through normal owners, networks, and chatter of things, it might be a couple of years it might be a year or 2 down the way, and some serious moves may have already been made. And I think that's what's different, the speed of the change and also just understanding what their real incentives and goals are and what they're trying to do.
Yeah. And what is a playbook that these guys follow? Typical. What is a typical playbook for a private equity?
There are a lot of them. We'll focus on the ones that are relevant. I mean, there are all types of investors that are out there. You have growth-oriented investors, you have value-oriented investors, you have distressed investors, you have guys who do manufacturing, you have guys who do services, healthcare, software. There are a lot of varieties. As you drill down to roofing, what the strategy is here for roofing, it falls in the playbook of, the term is a buy and build, a consolidation play, a roll-up play. And the idea is you find a fragmented industry that has good structure to it. So the right components that private equity firms like, which is a good, sustainable, durable industry that can is not really super cyclical. It's very fragmented. It's got good cash flow dynamics. It's an essential service. And then they will go out and, of course, they'll buy one business and they'll try and grow it as quickly and as efficiently as they can by investing in the people, investing in the growth, investing in the marketing to try and grow that business, because that's how they make money. But another lever they have started pulling and gotten more aggressive about this lever is buying other businesses. So I'll use roofing as an example. Let's say you buy a roofing business in Atlanta. If you want to expand that roofing business as quickly as possible, like you leverage the brand in the Atlanta market to grow. If you want to go to Dallas, that brand means nothing. No one's ever heard of that brand. You're starting from zero. So they look at that and they say, should we greenfield this branch in Dallas and kind of start from nothing and go slow? Or should we just buy a business in Dallas that already has the characteristics we're looking for and invest in growth? And because they have capital at their disposal and their purpose is to kind of put capital to work is what they say. And their skill set is finding, evaluating, and buying businesses. They do that, and they grow faster by acquiring brands and companies and investing in them for growth than starting from scratch. So it's a quicker way to get to scale faster, which is what they're focused on. They are long on money, short on time. And that's the best way to do it for them.
Yeah. You mentioned that this playbook, right, has been run in other industries. What other industries have run this playbook before and it's worked for them?
Yeah, it has worked. I mean, I'll go back really old. I mean, Wayne Huizenga might have, I don't know if he had like the first roll up. I mean, he was the billionaire owner of the Dolphins. I think he passed away a number of years ago. Like he rolled up Waste Management back in like the 60s or 70s, where he bought up all the little waste management firms, changed their name, rebranded them. Now, a lot of them aren't being rebranded now, but that's one of the first ones. But other industries, so a lot of sectors, healthcare, dermatology practices, ophthalmology practices, dentist offices, veterinary practices. You got insurance agencies, you got wholesale insurance agencies, and then on the facility and commercial services, facility and home services, which is what most people in the roofing sector are familiar with. It's HVAC, which also is kind of plumbing. You got landscaping, you got lawn care, you have fire and life safety, again, roofing, you got residential and commercial. What are some other ones? I've seen wedding venues, tree care, property restoration. And where I get into this, I was doing this in fire safety. I was in the middle of doing this. I was running acquisitions for a consolidation play in the fire safety space. I was brought in to lead the acquisitions for it. And we evaluated a couple hundred fire safety businesses, put out a number of offers, number of bids. We closed over a dozen of them in 18 months. And what I learned was how aggressive these firms can be and how important this M&A machine is to these strategies and what the playbook really is in terms of integrating them, centralizing the right things. You don't centralize everything. You centralize the right things for that business, things that take things off the plate of people that are on the ground level so they can go out and do more on the things that need to be done on site. Like you don't have to do some purchasing. You don't have to do accounting you do some of the accounting, but like the selling on site, the training on site, the customer service on site, production, running materials, those things have to be done on site. There are other things that don't have to be, and you can share best practices across successful brands. What is best for marketing? What are SOPs you have? What are selling systems, training that's been utilized? You can leverage those things in technology across multiple brands to take the best of everything and grow that business. So, sorry, I went down a tangent here based on that, but this role's been going on in a lot of industries. I'm sure I can even think of more if you give me time, but dozens. There are firms that specialize, MSPs, managed service providers, and the technology side of things. There are firms that kind of almost specialize now in doing consolidation plays. That's their primary way of investing now. Pool service routes, it's another one.
Yeah. That's the thing to people understand is that most industries are not fragmented. They're actually dominated by a few players, right? If you look at every industry, right? A lot of industries are dominated by a few players, and roofing, right? Because I've been in roofing for a while now, and other home services is very fragmented. So there's literally like hundreds of thousands of companies in these spaces, and there's not really a big player that's dominating. That's not typical. Most industries are not like that.
Correct. If you notice the trend in what all these industries I mentioned, is that they all lean towards service-based businesses that are local. And because they're local, they're highly fragmented because you need roofing businesses, you need HVAC businesses in every local market. You need dermatology practices in every local market. You need optometry. Like you need all these things in local markets. And then they've realized you have to be like, hey, these are stable, durable businesses that make sense. Let's try and scale these things and create a national brand or national business that operates in a lot of it operates independently and grow it. Like for example, and I'll use HVAC because it's close to fire safety. It's close to roofing. But there are investment firms in New York and San Francisco and all over that own 50 HVAC brands that all go under the local brand name, all advertise individually locally. There's no, like, they're not slapping the name of the owner on the side of the van. It's like the goal is that nobody knows that these acquisitions have taken place and they still believe it's a local business providing that service. And they're not trying to be deceitful, but they realize the value of the brand, the local reputation of those businesses, and they're trying to use that to grow the business. Because if they change the name, they lost a lot of value. So it's kind of a silly thing to do. Accounting practices. Sorry, I just thought of another one.
Yeah.
Accounting practice is a new one.
Yeah, for sure. What makes a roofing an attractive asset? If you're a buyer, what are the things you're looking for to make an attractive offer to a roofing company?
If you're trying to make an attractive offer to a roofing company, or what makes it an attractive opportunity to go after?
Attractive opportunity to go after.
So what makes roofing appealing to a lot of these investors is, the durability of the industry, that this is a non-discretionary item that virtually every building needs. I mean, if you don't replace your roof, the real estate you own, the building you own, the facility you own will deteriorate in value. And that's a much bigger cost than replacing the roof. So replacing your roof is a when question, not an if question. So it's going to get done. It's on it is one time in nature, but as you zoom out from the industry and realize there are, millions and millions of roofs, it does normalize. I mean, each roof gets replaced every 20 years. So it's a one-time sale for a lot of people, but on millions of roofs, it turns into a pretty steady demand year over year. Which is what they like. I mean, they're putting leverage on these businesses and they need steady cash flow in order to bring that in every year and pay off their interest and pay down the debt. So they love that it's a consistent, steady industry that is non-discretionary for its customers. It is asset light. So when you make money, you don't have to turn around and invest it into a lot of machinery and equipment to go out and earn more profits. It generates cash that you can pocket and pay down your debt with, and it's fragmented. And it's also, roofing in particular, more than these other industries I mentioned that are getting rolled up in home services, is scalable. Scalable given a lot of the labor, more on the residential side, that is the installers are outsourced. So it's more scalable, although there are plenty of headaches with making sure you have good crews that are trained, that follow practices that you trust. So that's a separate set of issues. But it is a more scalable model that they find appealing because they can invest in growth.
Yeah, I think you described basically the difference between a want and a need, right? Roofing is a needs-based business, right? It's similar to HVAC and plumbing, where it's a needs-based. Somebody has a messed up AC here in Miami, they're gonna call somebody that actually can. Hey, I need somebody in AC to repair. Same thing with the roof. The roof is typically the most expensive part of a home, right? So it's very expensive, but it's very important because it's a very important part of the home, right? So they're gonna spend money if they have to. Typically, a lot of times, insurance makes them get on your roof because it's required, right? So they have to do it, right? So that's kind of the difference. It's a needs-based business. It's not so much dependent on the economy as much versus other industries, which are more like, hey, dependent on some factors that are really outside your control, right? And that's kind of the beauty about this industry, right? It's growing. Like, so the home services industry has been growing every year for like a decade. It's going to continue to grow, right? And I think what's happening too is a lot of these white collar jobs actually have decreased in terms of the opportunity, I think, depending on where you are. And actually a lot of blue collar jobs, a lot of the trades have actually increased in the terms of the actual value that a lot of people. So actually, I think a lot of talent has gone into the space the last 5 or 10 years that weren't before. A lot of white collar people have entered the trades where it wasn't before. So that's another thing that I've seen as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What you mentioned branding, right? How important is branding? What are the things that private equity looks for in terms of brand? How do they define a brand?
It's a good question how to define a brand. I bet there are marketing guys that are way better at defining the brand than me. But when you think about what everybody kind of looks for, even as a professional, what you do, it's kind of what makes you different, what makes you unique, what is your differentiator. And in roofing, a lot of it comes down to the branding, the reputation, the credibility you have in the market, that people are just think of you when they think of a roof. And that's what they want to see. They like, that is kind of the moat or the barrier they're relying on when they buy your business. Because if they buy a roofing business, like, they're not many assets. They're not a whole lot. I mean, there's some trucks, there's maybe some equipment in the office, but that's about it. What they're really relying on is this brand is a lead generation machine that we can invest in and grow through just putting more money into it, focus on different channels, optimizing the marketing we're doing. But it really comes down to, is there a brand we can invest behind that kind of turns into this flywheel or this lead magnet of more jobs that come in that we can go out and win business for. And that is the differentiator of what the brand can really do. It can build that credibility in the market.
Is there an actual value assigned to a brand? Like, is there like a metric or a KPI that you use to define? I'm sure, because you probably, when you're doing all these deals, you actually looked at specific metrics. What are the specific metrics that you're looking for?
Yeah, there's some metrics that you can use as proxy. I mean, there's some things as basic as, like, how long has the company been around? How much of what is your lead source? What do your lead sources look like? How much of this is referral, word of mouth? How much is this from call-ins? You can look at reviews, Google reviews, number of reviews, quality of reviews. Those are the main ones. And you can probably break it down a little, like cost of lead, because the lower someone's cost of lead is, the more naturally they're getting their reputation and brand out there. So those are, I'm sure there are more, but those are probably the main ones on the surface I pay the most attention to, and that you can kind of see from afar. I mean, some of those the answers I gave you, you need to get like some internal information to understand those. Some of the ones I mentioned, you can kind of just go to their website and look at Google and read things about them to learn more.
Yeah. You also mentioned last time we spoke was the importance of market density, right? How dense a market is and how much they control versus, like, it's much more valuable. Like let's example, a $20 million company that's in one location versus 5 locations, right? Can you explain that concept?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, what they're buying is a brand reputation, and that has, again, reputation and credible in their market. And you can define market however you want, but they would rather have that strong allegiance and loyalty in any size market than being really spread out. And, like, I'll give you the exact example. I think I remember this now from an owner I talked to, where he was probably about 9 million of revenue, I think. And I was like, oh, it's a nice sized roofing business, 9 million revenue. And then as we got into more detail, he explained to me that there was 3 million of revenue spread across 3 different markets that were all 6 hours apart. And I was like, this is now more like 3 small roofing companies, because there's not a whole lot of like cross-pollination or overlap because they're so far apart. So they're each just small 3 roofing companies in separate markets, which is different than if you were, $10 million, $20 million of revenue in one market. You've got much more density, much more credibility, much more reputation. You have more word of mouth working for you in that market when you have more density in a smaller area. And that is viewed more favorably.
Yeah. So obviously when you're coming to a deal, one of the things that you have to do is due diligence, right? Like, how does that process look like? I've heard a lot of, it could be stressful for the owner, right? For the owners involved, people selling. What does that look like? Can you walk me through like what it's going to look like if you want to sell your business?
Yeah. I mean, first of it's a lot of just, pulling a lot of data to be able to tell a story about your business. I think I wouldn't call it a trap that some owners get pulled into, is they're so close to their business. They think it's obvious and they know it so well that they want to jump right to the middle of the conversation of, hey, you should know what my business is. But someone showing up to the conversation has no idea. They don't know your history. They don't know if you're insurance focused, retail focused, what your lead flow is like, because all these businesses are so different that you need to really explain the story of your business and how you got to here and why. And you can tell that conversationally, but in the end, you got to really verify it through data and show, because there are going to be a lot of questions that come with that. And, it's easy for me to say all the data is great. You need all this data, P&L, detail on revenue, detail on leads, detail on close rates, detail on retail, insurance, sales performance, all those things. But the reality is, like, you have to track that information. You've got to have that information over a period of time in order to show that. And these buyers, like, they'll trust you to an extent, but at some point you got to show us. Like, you got to be able to see the information. And even for me to take stuff on, like, you got to be able to see the information to know that it's actually there. And that's where it can get tricky, because sometimes people's systems aren't as tight, let's say, to be able to readily pull information, or maybe even the information people are asking is just, it's a different format from what owners used to pulling and looking at. A lot of times I'll talk to an owner and say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z to kind of get the ball rolling just so we can start our conversation. And it's not the typical financials how they look at them. So it's not the reports they're used to pulling, and they've never cared about that kind of data, which can make it tricky for them, because they're like, I always pull these reports. Well, these reports are for operating the business on a day-to-day basis. We're looking at these reports, which help you understand the story of your business and where it is today and how a buyer is going to look at it. So it's honestly just different reports too, but having a handle on your data is essential. You got to have the handle on your data.
What are the reports that you're looking for typically, if you're looking at it?
Yeah, I would say some of the biggest ones that matter for me are probably monthly P&Ls for a period of time, adjustments, add backs based on non-business expenses, and then it's a lot more detail on the revenue side of things. So what is this residential? Is this commercial? Is this new construction? Is this a roof replacement? How much is roofing, siding, gutters, windows, or some other ones? What's new construction? Literally, you got to be able to slice and dice the revenue a number of ways in order for buyers to really understand what this business is and what its focus is. And they're hoping to see that you have kind of found your niche and started leaning in hard to it, and they can keep leaning in harder to it. Other ones will go around lead generation. What are your lead sources? How much are you spending? What's your cost by a lead source? Sales metrics. A lot of them will, honestly, you get deeper in the process and they begin to look at also employee turnover. And it's all benchmarked to what is normal for the industry, but they're curious. What does this business look like the last few years, and coming and going, and the consistency of it? So they end up getting pretty deep by the end. Now, it's all phased. You start with basic and get more detailed, or a certain amount of information you'll share up to a level, and then, we need more to go to the next phase. That's how we do it. But it varies, but it's a healthy amount of information. They'll hire advisors to go in even deeper than they will once you're post LOI. So they're data hounds. I mean, a lot of these buyers are data hounds, so be prepared.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of not really struggle with, but a lot of clients that we try to help with is basically the importance of data, right? Making sure their data is clean, right? Because one of the things that we try to do is, as marketing companies, right? The reason why they hire us is that one of our core values is putting more money into our clients' pockets. So what that means is basically turning marketing into sales, right? How do you do that? Well, there's a process that needs to happen. One of the things that a lot of people have struggles with is actually understanding how effective the marketing is and where the best lead sources are coming from, what actual channel provides the best return on investment, best channel, all those different things. So that's something that it's part of the game. So I think for us, I try to educate clients on that, right? So I try to educate clients on that specific item because it's very important that you have those things in place. So I think it's also important too to understand is that you should build your business in this manner, even if you have no intention of selling it, right? Because proper way of selling it, right? Proper actually way to run a business, right? If you have that data, because it gives you information. At the end of the day, like if you're a business owner, right, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make right choices for your business, right? If you have the right data, right, right information, typically you are going to make the right choice for your business, right? Even though people get emotional sometimes, it should be based on like what the data says a lot of the times. And that's an important thing to understand, right? So that's kind of the things that I help clients with is that, hey, have your CRM, let's tie your marketing to your CRM, making sure the leads are being generated in a proper manner. And we understand where all the lead sources are coming from. And if you're getting sales. Now, if there's a leak in that sales process, maybe there's something with the actual, how you answer the phone, right? How you actually follow up with the lead, right? What your CSR is saying, right? Sometimes you'll be surprised. A lot of times they're not trained, right? So you have to understand that process, right? So those things are important, understanding the grand picture of everything, right? There's a lot of fear with private equity, right? You know, I don't have any like positive or negatives. I really don't know, honestly. But there's a lot, if you look at the Facebook groups, obviously there's a lot of fear, right? What are the things that makes a good private equity partner if somebody wants to sell? Because there's been some bad stories I've heard. What are the things that they should, a roofing partner, roofing company, if they want to partner, what are the things they should look for with a partner?
Good question. And there is fear. And like there are bad stories out there. There are bad stories you hear, and my heart goes out to those guys. I mean, it sucks to hear because they've invested a lot of their life into that business. And when it doesn't go well, it sucks. And where I always think a little bit is it's tough to sometimes separate things where what led them to the outcome they're in. And what I really focus on is kind of alignment and making sure you are aligned with the partner and what your goals are and your strategy of getting there. And they've got a reputation of standing behind all that is huge. And I think what a lot of people over-index on valuation and price. It's very important, and don't appreciate the aspect of who they're marrying, who they're actually partnering up with, which is very, very important. And it also just, I think, understanding what's at play and being prepared for it. I think I think it's tough for a lot of owners to go from 100% owner, majority owner, calling all the shots. I haven't had a boss in years to you kind of have a boss now, and you're not the majority owner. And every decision, you might need to run some of your decisions by other people, and their decision may not have been what your decision is. And that's tough to swallow. I think that's not tough to swallow. It's a big change. It's a big adjustment for a lot of these owners. And I think some of the pain some of it's just in that alone. And then it's like, hey, if it doesn't go well, it wasn't my decision. I would have done something different, or maybe they have different views. And that's where I think having an aligned partner is really important. Aligned partner and good deal structure. When you have very earnout heavy things, you need to be more trusting of what's going on. And yeah, again, a lot of it's alignment with like the same goal. And this is where I fully believe there's some bad outcomes that are out there. And I think what is different is like, I think they all have the same goal of like, make money on our investment, but their path to getting there, everyone's path to getting there is a little bit different. And you want to make sure you're aligned with the guy that has a similar path for getting there, because you can have different views and they might make some boneheaded ideas, but their goal, their intentions were all really good, but we made some missteps along the way we got to correct for, and that can be challenging. That can be really challenging. And there's a lot at stake for guys, which is why it's tough. But for other people, I know it's been life-changing. The first acquisition, the second bite of the apple, the second acquisition, you hear him just say like, look, it's been great. It's given me life-changing opportunities. So I don't want to look. There are good and bad out there. I'm not trying to hide that, but I don't want to dwell just on the downside of things, because you talk to a lot of people that have had great experiences. And the truth is, if these private equity firms only had bad experiences, they wouldn't be doing this. Like, nobody would give them money if they've only got bad experience to show for it. So they have good outcomes more often than not, which is why they keep doing their job.
Yeah, I think what I read, that private equity has one of the highest return on investments over like a 10-year period, compared to other typical investments. So obviously, typically, these guys know what they're doing. They're pretty smart guys. They're smart guys. They know what they're doing. They've done their homework. You mentioned mistakes. So what are the most common mistakes that somebody would have? I guess misaligned incentives, but like what are the most like tactical? Like what are the most common mistakes people would make in that?
The most common mistakes. I don't know. I mean, I think one thing is just, it's not a common mistake, but I think I would be aware of the fact that these buyers and private equity investors all day, every day, they evaluate, negotiate, and structure deals. with business owners that are facing potentially life-changing money.
First deal, yeah.
First
Typically
deal.
First deal, yeah.
So it's kind of like, I've done the analogy before of like, if you have a roofing sales guy who's been doing roofing sales for 15 years, like the guy can do the stuff in his sleep, and he's up against a customer or a homeowner who has never bought a roof. Like I don't want to say it's unfair is a wrong way to characterize it, but he's a decades-long salesman up against someone who's never bought this product in their life. They have to buy it. And this guy's prepared for everything. He's seen it all. He knows exactly what to say, the levers to pull, how to talk about things, the tone to use, the questions to ask, how to time things. And when you're a business owner, you're kind of going against the same thing. You're going against a guy who's all day, every day, for a decade, has been structuring, negotiating, building relationships with business owners, and knows what to say, knows the trigger points, knows the stories to share, knows how to talk about things in your language, knows how to build rapport. Like, it's the same kind of dynamic. So I think understanding that it's a larger sales process that you're in the middle of, I think is something they may lose sight of. Just because it's easy, because these guys are really good at building relationships, really good at building a rapport. I think that's the most fundamental thing they probably don't appreciate, is they are lulled a little to the idea that I'm just having a conversation. I'm not in the middle of this sales funnel this guy has, and I didn't realize it.
Yeah. I think these guys are very sharp, like sharks. I wouldn't say in a bad way, but obviously some of these guys are like that. I've heard many stories. One of the podcasts I really listen to a lot, you've probably heard of it, it's Built to Sell. He wrote this book called, John Willow wrote this book, Built to Sell, read it years ago. And obviously if you see that they go through a lot of different types of businesses, right? I don't think they go through many roofing examples or home service examples, mostly like white collar businesses, like software and agencies and stuff. But you see in that side, like there's a lot of good stories, right? And a lot of bad stories too in that side. And the common thing is that these guys know what they're doing with the deal. So you have to be prepared when the time comes if you're going to sell your business. And typically, right, depending on how old you are, right, this might be like your last shot. Right. So you have to understand, hey, this is actually like a really big deal. So you have to understand what that process looks like. Emotion plays a big part. Honestly, it's an emotional thing, because you're selling something, and sometimes you think of it as your baby. Even though one of my business mentors always says it's just a business. You should not think of it as a baby, because it's just, something that you run as an asset, really, as part of your business. But that's kind of the nutshell that you have to understand, is that process. So these guys understand what they're doing. And I think, obviously, my opinion, I think you can use private equity to grow and fund your growth. That's really what it is. If you want to see the path to growth, it's going to help you, right? I talked to a roofer contractor last couple of weeks ago. He sold to a private equity, and now he's able to offer his employees like retirement plans, right? 401ks, all these different things that he couldn't do before. Now he's happy to do that. Now he's provided like more sustainability for his employees. He's looking out for his employees. So that's kind of the thing you have to understand. Hey, you have more capital and you're putting it to work. That's kind of the thing you have to understand, right? And another thing for me, like the way I see it too with marketing, right? These guys are coming in and typically they know what they're doing online. And for me, it's good because I can work with people that frankly are better with marketing, and they can understand the language I'm speaking, right? And it makes us easier to work with these people. So that's what I see it. It's just basically you're making it more sophisticated. The industry is becoming more sophisticated, right? And more mature. That's kind of the big things that you have to kind of look at, right? Let's talk about consolidation. Like you mentioned about consolidation, how
you mind if I respond to one thing you said?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think you mentioned the employees there is a real component that I think gets overshadowed in a lot of things. And in the end, the deals between the business owner and the buyer. So like I understand that the owner is mainly, I don't want to say looking out for themselves, but that's the primary component. But there are better benefits, better job opportunities, more opportunities for growth. I mean, in a current roofing business, you can't really get above the current owner of the business. That's kind of the ceiling in this thing. And when you're part of a much larger roofing business, there are more opportunities to grow, both in functions, within the finance department, within the marketing department. There's more opportunity for growth, as well as just in the operations department. You now have the opportunity to be a brand president somewhere else, or a regional manager somewhere else. Like there's just more opportunity for growth for employees that are there. And there's also an opportunity for these guys to get more upside as well, where they might get some stock options in certain things. They might be able to invest in this opportunity to get upside as well from the second bite of the apple. So I think that is a component that some owners appreciate more than others, but I think employees definitely appreciate that there's more opportunity for them to grow and advance as well. So
Yeah,
sorry, I
yeah,
cut you off.
yeah, for sure, for sure. That's good. That's awesome. In terms of consolidation, right? The window, right? This is a big fear. Is actually the economy a big factor, and like the multiple you're getting, is that like a big factor, or it just doesn't matter really?
The economy.
Yeah, in terms of like there's because there's like a lot of macro factors that are outside your control, and typically they say, hey, if you sell at this point, you'll get a higher multiple. The market is hotter or cooler. It depends on that. Like, what do you say to those things?
There are a lot of factors that go into the value of your business. Internal ones that you control, ones you can't control. I mean, the runway, there's still more runway for roofing. It is picked up fast. I think, if you think about like these external factors, I mean, think about roofing 7 years ago. Like the valuations for roofing from then to now, they're probably double. The same business is probably worth double what it used to be worth. So these external factors do matter, and private equity's focused in the opportunity they see in roofing does matter, because that is what driven a lot of valuations. And it's about honestly just showing continued performance. The more people see results, like their strategy panning out and results from the investments they're making, the changes they're making, the more likely they are to lean in more. There are a lot of strategies right now. These consolidated strategies, we're pursuing this, everything seems to make sense. Let's go out and execute it. If you execute it and it all works, let's do more of it. If everyone goes out and executes it and it falls flat, they're gonna be like, all right, well, we didn't factor in X, Y, and Z. We got to factor that in now. And that will bring down the appetite for roofing stuff, for roofing assets. So it really, I'd say it's going to be driven by the performance of the assets that are out there that have been acquired. And right now there's a healthy appetite and focus on buying more, but at some point it'll come due and we'll see how everybody's performed. And that's where there'll be, I don't say like a reset, but that'll be new data points that they'll factor into what they're doing. But it's interesting the speed at which it's going on in roofing.
And do you mean that like the factor in their investment? So like, I say in 5 years, we'll see how those private equity companies did with their investment. And then if they did well, that'll continue. If they didn't do well, then hey, there'll be like a more reset in terms of the actual like investment moving forward. Is that what you mean by that?
Essentially. I mean, a lot of these firms are investing in the strategy. If the strategy doesn't hold, if the strategy works, everybody makes money. We keep doing it. If the strategy doesn't hold, and I'm talking like industry level, not like one-off situations. If the strategy either doesn't hold, it's a different conversation. It's like, all right, well, this didn't work. We're not going to keep investing in something that didn't work. So it depends.
How important is technology in the evaluation of a business, right? Especially a fragmented business and a non-technical business like home services, especially like roofing. How important is technology in the role?
Very important. I mean, as you talked about earlier, as the industry is getting more sophisticated, I think of technology in two components. One, it helps increase that sophistication very quickly because you can do more with less. You can connect tools and use tools to do things. The other component is, the conversation we had around data and how important data is to what they're doing. Data comes from using technology and inputting that and saving that and tracking that and making decisions based on that. So I view it as two factors, like kind of using it to capture and track data and make decisions based off of it, and then using the tools to better optimize everything we're actually trying to do to grow the business. So it's really important as you grow and as the industry matures and gets more sophisticated, it's going to become even more important.
Yeah. How much of an impact? I know we talked about this briefly, and how much of an impact has AI been in the roofing space? Have you seen a lot of like practical things that a lot of roofing companies have done that you look under the hood that they're doing with themselves that's helped them grow, or is that still kind of very new to the space?
It's a good question. I know it gets a lot of hype and when people talk about it, look, the tools are really, really incredible. I think more about how does it impact roofing companies, and I'm just not sure. And I think it probably helps the most on the content side of things, is my guess, to help them get in front of people with the right message. But in the end, when you think about this business, it's, the sales are taking place because you have a guy sitting around a kitchen table selling to a homeowner. And AI, I don't know how much AI can help with that. I mean, I guess they can give you all the data points that are relevant to that homeowner, so you can talk, more to that one of your. If you have like 5 sales pitches, this is the pitch for that person. You hear about that in like politics sometimes, or like door knocking, where they know the profile of that individual, so they know how to communicate to that person based on the inputs they have. Maybe that could become more of a play. But from what I see, it's a little bit more peripheral, just given roofing is very much a manual blocking and tackling business. I mean, there's a lot of technology, but not the fundamentals of roofing. It's more around how do you grow your business and track your business and manage it, not the, I guess, the nuts and bolts operations of it. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I don't think building a brand and reputation will go away. I think even if everyone can get more efficient getting their stuff in front of eyeballs, the branding and reputation is still going to win out, because it's, what are you getting in front of the eyeballs? Are you getting something they recognize and appreciate in front of them, or something they've never seen before?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more important as they age AI, because content, like you said before, has really become very common. It's everywhere, right? So it's very cheap.
You can drown in content.
Exactly. It's very cheap to create content. So it's not expensive anymore. Before it was actually, it wasn't super expensive, but it was still required work, right? Now it's very inexpensive. So the only thing that's going to matter, right, it's going to be brand, right? Branding is going to be more important. So what's your personal touch? What makes you different? What makes you unique, right? In the age of faceless AI and AI videos and AI models now. So that's kind of the thing that people have to be aware of, right? You mentioned about like sales, right? Actually, there's a couple of softwares out there. Like one of them is Rilla. I don't know if you heard of it, but they actually allow you to.
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, so they allow you to record conversations in the home with the homeowner, right? I think you have to ask for permission, and then it gives you like feedback on the tone of voice, right? You should have said this, that, and all those different things. So those are innovative tools that people are using to improve their sales, right? That's a big thing, I think, because I think one of the things that one of the roofers I talked to a few weeks ago, they're using that tool, and he's saying that, hey, a lot of salespeople, they think they're doing the right thing, and it's hard to track if you have like 30 people, right? Because you don't know what's actually being said on the calls. But now this tool allows you the actual ability to track. For us, for me, typically all our sales are virtual, so it's all like on the phone or Zoom, so it can track that. But now home service companies, right, they have that data, and before they didn't have that data. So that's kind of the valuable thing that they can be using now with AI to look to improve their sales, right, on that. So what you started posting, like what made you get into the roofing industry? Like you were in fire and safety, like what made you get into the roofing industry?
Yeah, I was in the fire safety industry doing this, and what I realized was how poorly informed a lot of business owners were about how the mergers and acquisitions and the M&A process works. What is private equity? How are businesses valued? They weren't aware of it. And honestly, a lot of their advisors weren't that much better. I mean, there were times we were trying to buy a business, and their advisor was like actively making it harder for us. And it was just mind blowing. I was like, does this guy not want to help his client? Does this guy not want to get this deal closed? Like, we were trying this guy's business, and their broker like was making it virtually impossible. I finally had to get the broker's lawyer on the phone to talk to him about how the process should work. And the lawyer was like, yeah, Williams talking about how it normally works. Like, you guys should do that. And we kind of went like, all right, let's do this. So I was doing in fire safety. Again, realized how poorly informed owners were, and their advisors weren't much better, and realized that owners could benefit from this. So I kind of stepped away from doing in fire safety in order to provide that more of an independent service to those businesses. I mean, previously I was a buyer trying to buy their business. So there was a kind of a line I wouldn't cross when I was explaining and knowledge sharing, giving education, all these things. But now that line is kind of gone. I'm fully there to help them. And I figured I'd be more beneficial to business owners and roofing owners if I was all in on their industry, because then I could understand their business really, really well. What makes them different? What makes them unique? What's a good one? What's a bad one? How people would look at their business, what information is required for people to make decisions, and then also get to know the whole network on the other side of who are the buyers, what do they pay, what are they looking for, how they structure deals, who likes what, who's just in different geographies. That the more I could like dive in and understand that industry, both sides of it, the more helpful I could be to business owners. So that's what I chose to do. And I dove into roofing. It was similar. I had a non-compete in fire safety. There were a lot of similar dynamics between this and fire safety. So I dove headfirst into roofing. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun learning about roofing, meeting the people, getting deep in the industry. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, yeah. What are those? I'm just curious. What are some of the differences between fire and safety and roofing, or just very similar?
Yeah, it's actually more different than I initially thought.
Okay. Okay.
If you think about the profile of owner, so a fire safety business is like sprinklers, alarms, fire extinguishers, restaurant suppression systems. So it's like a B2B back office service. It's a regulatory driven industry. So they kind of have to do this stuff. It's business to business. They're usually legacy kind of stodgy businesses. So think like, I don't know, second or generation. Usually it's like an older owner. Their sales and marketing doesn't really matter in that industry. Their websites probably haven't been updated. The owners, I want to say like hiding in their office, but they're just not out there the same way roofing owners are out there. But they're older, they're not sales and marketing focused. Roofing owners, younger, there's much more sales and marketing associated with them. Usually the roofing businesses are much younger. I mean, a fire safety business, a young one's probably 10 years old.
Wow. Wow.
We were buying ones, some that are like 40 years old, 50 years old. So like they're much older. Roofing companies they're younger. So the businesses are younger. The owners are younger. It's much more sales and marketing focused. I even joke, roofing owners know their EBITDA and earnings much better than fire safety guys do. They had no idea what their metrics were. So it was more different than I thought, which is just interesting to see.
They're lead zombies, we call them. We used to call them lead zombies. They want leads all day.
Well, what's interesting, in fire safety, you don't even really need leads. Because if you are a service-based business, all of your customers are like required via regulations to buy your service every year. And then every year you come in, you do your inspection, you find broken stuff, you fix it, and like you don't have to go out and market for new customers a ton. You just stick with your current ones. And that's a lot of those were kind of more lifestyle-esque businesses. So people weren't into sales and marketing. It was just a lot of effort to grow. So they would just enjoy the customers they had and just keep servicing them.
Yeah, yeah. Where do people can find you? Where can they find you?
Honestly, the place I'm the most active now is Facebook, where I share insight and education and knowledge about M&A, private equity, roofing, what's going on. And it's kind of weird because M&A can be a very confidential industry where you can't share a lot of details. So I try and get on to share as much knowledge I can to help these guys to make more informed decisions. That's really what it comes down to, is helping guys make more informed decisions about what to do with their business. Whether it's keep it, hold it, whatever it might be.
And just to give you guys some information, like Facebook is by far where a lot of roofing companies hang out, more than LinkedIn or more than others. It's really Facebook. So that's where people actually see. So if you just follow him, I'll put a link in the description. You can just add him as a friend. He'll add you back if you're a roofer or just a contractor, home service pro. And he actually provides a lot of information on the post, and just message him if you have any questions, right? On that side.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I love answering questions to help these guys, because that's the main thing. Like, this is their most valuable asset. They need to understand what their options are. No matter what they want to do, they should understand their options.
Awesome. William, thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks for listening to AI and Marketing for Home Service Pros. If you got value from today's episode, do us a favor. Follow the show, share it with a contractor friend, and leave a quick review. Want help using AI or smarter marketing to grow your business? Head to contractormarketingpros.net and book your free strategy call.